let's talk a little UF recruiting. Now, it wasn't supposed to be a big visit weekend in Gainesville, but the Gator staff, they changed it by getting some surprise recruits on campus. The thing about these recruits, though, they're committed to other programs. We're going to discuss Florida's flip chances here in a minute, but UF fans, let's get it going. Subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. Look at that, almost to 10K. Help us get there right now. All right, let's bring on your favorite Gator recruiting insider, Corey Bender from Gators Online. Corey, we are talking flip targets, and UF had some on campus this weekend. Here we go. Wide receiver Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State. He's a five-star. Five-star corner Charles Lester, he's committed to FSU. Then a pair of Longhorn commitments in Jerrick Gibson and Deontre Robinson. Corey, let's just start at the top. Jeremiah Smith, the number one wide receiver in America, has been flirting with the Florida Gators on and off since he committed to Ohio State. What do you make of this most recent visit for Jeremiah Smith to the Swamp?
I think it's really important. Depending on the opponent, you had to get him back on campus if you really want to have a shot at, changing his mind. And I think he's going to be back for the Florida State game too. So you got him on campus for Charlotte, which I think Florida, you're playing against a Charlotte team. You're hoping to run up that score a little bit to kind of show, hey, we're going to air raid this. We're going to throw it out. We're going to get our best playmakers the ball. But overall, I definitely, Florida definitely helped their chances this weekend. And I still probably would put Florida behind FSU as far as the school with the most chance of flipping him, but Florida made up ground. He also mentioned the Ricky Pearsall catch. That was the best catch he's seen in person. There was a lot to like when he was in Gainesville. As expected, he got the red carpet treatment. So I think for any school, it's going to be extremely difficult to flip him. I know he's going to be going back and forth down the stretch on certain schools, but right now it's Florida State and Florida. Those are the two schools I think who have the best shot. And then, Miami and Georgia are still mentioned too. But I think overall, he stands pretty solid with that commitment, but Florida definitely made up a little bit of ground.
And he had a monster game against Miami Central over the weekend. Jeremiah Smith proving why he's a five-star, proving why he's the number one wide receiver over and over again. All right, moving down the list, five-star cornerback Charles Lester. He was in Gainesville. Now, this one was probably the biggest surprise to me. He committed to Florida State in August, and Florida wasn't even in his final group when he committed to FSU. Now he shows back up in the Swamp. You guys had a chance to talk to him afterward. What's the word on Charles Lester in Florida?
So Florida's the only other school he's communicating with right now, and obviously a big part of that's the Corey Raymond effect. Corey Raymond, any big-time DB, when Florida's recruiting you and Corey Raymond's on the staff, you always take it seriously. And it's interesting, like you said, Josh, Florida didn't make his top group, but that to me, that says the most, that Florida didn't listen to the outside noise. They didn't let all that affect them. They kept recruiting and kind of placed that faith in the Corey Raymond's hands. And, Florida is the only other school right now under consideration. And, Lester, I think Florida State, I think he's very solid with that commitment. He's probably going to be up to Tallahassee again here soon as well. But I think overall, if you're Florida, you keep chipping away. You might get three more visits out of this as well. You might get him on campus for the Arkansas game, the Florida State game, and then more likely he's going to return on December 9th for an official visit. So Billy Napier's been big on, hey, as long as we get you to campus, we'll kind of put in the work, kind of like what they did with Kamari Wilson a few cycles ago. Florida wasn't mentioned at all. They got him on campus for an official, and the rest was history. So I think overall, Florida's going to keep chipping away. They're somewhat optimistic, but they know it's going to be a tough battle ahead of them.
All right, next name on the list. And yeah, I agree with you. With Charles Lester, if they can get it, it would be crazy if they didn't even make his final group when he committed in August, and then he goes ahead and visits them 4 times in the fall. And you're right. That is the formula to a flip. If you can get Charles Lester on campus that many times, you're going to have a shot there in the end. All right.
And another thing, too, Josh, I'll point out, Jamar Chaney, who left to be the outside linebackers coach at Western Kentucky, that was his go-to contact in addition to Corey Raymond. So not only did they lose a primary source of communication, now Corey Raymond kind of took everything in his own hands. So it's definitely been an interesting development down the stretch.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Now, Jerrick Gibson, he was a one-time commitment to the Florida Gators. It seems like ages ago that he committed to Dan Mullen. Different staff, different recruitment, but he was back on campus 2 weeks in a row. He was there for the Tennessee game and then back for Charlotte. Are we getting excited about a potential flip here for Jerrick Gibson, or was he just bored and had nothing else to do? Why is he in Gainesville 2 weekends in a row?
So last week there was a host of IMG kids. I think most kids, if you're in the state of Florida, you see that Florida-Tennessee game, you circle on your calendar. So that was one of the ones where a bunch of teammates were going up, and obviously he gets to see family back home. So it was kind of like a win-win for him. But also this past weekend, IMG was on a bye week. So Gibson came back to Gainesville. It's the same situation that happened back in the spring for the Orange and Blue game. Came home for Easter break and then decided to make the short trip to campus. So I definitely wouldn't, get my fingers crossed if you're a Florida fan. They definitely want to have one more back in this class if possible. And Gibson's near the top of that list. And we all know they're kind of preaching, hey, come back home to Gainesville. It's your dream school. You were committed here, once before. And he also likes Florida's ability to run the ball. They're really, they heavily rely on that two-headed monster they have in Gainesville. So I still feel good about where Texas stands. We'll see if they get them back on campus again. I think they will. But I think right now I feel better about where Texas stands for sure.
All right, now that takes us to the last name on this list, Deontre Robinson, 4-star defensive lineman out of the Orlando area. Now this one, it was a surprise visit, but it didn't surprise me because when Deontre Robinson chose Texas, he was really down to UF and Texas. Now, I just spoke to Jerry Hamilton. I think you heard him earlier on the show. The Texas staff didn't know this one was coming. So what's been cooking between Deontre Robinson and the Florida Gator staff?
All along, I was told by sources in Gainesville, Robinson's near the top of the wish list at defensive line. And I know Sean Spencer, Billy Napier, they all have been heavily involved in his recruitment, daily communication as well. So they knew how close of a battle this was the first time around. And, Texas obviously won out, but Florida's, trying to take advantage of that proximity, trying to convince them to take the hour-and-a-half drive up to Gainesville. They were able to do that. And he still says right now, he still feels like a major priority for the Gators. And also said Florida still has a chance here too. So I think out of the Texas commits out of Gibson and then Robinson, I think Robinson's the one you got to track a little bit more closely. And we walked away from it kind of feeling like he was a little bit torn, kind of when he got back to Gainesville. Florida was his favorite school growing up. He always used to rave about the Gators throughout his childhood. So I think when he went back on campus this past weekend, there was a little bit of nostalgia. And after the game, he was on the field with Billy Napier and the staff. So he's really settling in. You can tell he's kind of giving Florida an honest look right now. I think the most interesting part is whenever he gets back to Austin, if he does, maybe that commitment starts to settle in again, saying, hey, this is why I made that commitment in the first place. But I think coming out of the weekend, Florida feels pretty good, and they're going to keep chipping away over the next several months.
All right, so those were the 4 surprise visitors, 4 committed elsewhere. Trey, bring that graphic up one more time for us. All right, Corey, which of these 4 names do you think UF has the best chance to flip?
Definitely, I would say right now, Deontre Robinson. I just think before this week, he wasn't even really on our radar. We knew Florida was talking to him, but, conversations were really kind of stagnant. But right now, after this past weekend, I definitely go with Deontre Robinson.
All right. Now, let's shift gears real quick. One last topic I want to hit on. Brandon Baker, he's off the board. Now all eyes point to the number 2 ranked offensive tackle in the country, Jordan Seaton. And we know competition's only going to heat up for Seaton. Now the Gators, they've been heavily involved in this recruitment really before Jordan really blew up. He's now a 5-star. He got the bump in our ranking update last Monday. And he was supposed to be at the Tennessee game 2 weeks ago. But Corey, he didn't show up. He ended up going to Colorado on an unofficial visit, but Jordan Seaton does tell me there's still a lot of interest in the Gators. Has he rescheduled that visit, and do you know where the Gators stand with him?
Yeah, he'll be in town for the Vanderbilt game next weekend. So Florida's at Kentucky this week, and then he comes back to Gainesville next weekend for the homecoming game against Vanderbilt. So earlier in the summer, I put him in our mock class over the summer, and I say that because after speaking with him, he was all smiles talking about Florida. He didn't take too many visits other than Alabama, which took place about a month after that interview. So I kind of thought towards the end, proximity, and he already went to Tuscaloosa, that Florida can kind of pop back in late. But as we all know, his recruitment's kind of been all over the place in recent months. He's going to take numerous official visits. Oklahoma's in the mix. You got South Carolina, who I believe gets the last OV. So I think Florida right now, I think they're probably top 2, top 3 option for him. And really, I think bearing, they lost to Vanderbilt last season, which kind of definitely has a bad taste a lot of these Florida fans going into this one. So I think Florida definitely will come out and make a statement in this game, knowing Seaton's there. And it'll be interesting to see, what the turnout is. He'll be the lone official visitor too, and just show how much of a priority he is for Florida. Florida doesn't like hosting in-season official visitors. They kind of like doing all of it in June and December. Not for Jordan Seaton. They're going to make it work. They said, hey, if you want to come whenever you want for the OV. We'll make it happen. So you can expect when he comes on campus next weekend, there's going to be a host of staff members, always next to him at all times.
Yeah, and all eyes are on Jordan Seaton now. Like I said, 5-star Brandon Baker's off the board. There's just not a lot of quality big men, especially on the offensive line, available. We'll see with Jordan Seaton. My take on Jordan Seaton, and I know he hasn't come out and said anything officially, but I think it's probably Alabama, Florida, and then I'd say Colorado. And then after that, I think there's a group of Oklahoma, Florida State, Ohio State, just everybody else. I think there's a whole lot of teams going after Seaton. His recruitment's going to heat up. Like you said, I agree. He's wide open. I don't think Jordan Seaton makes the decision until sometime in November, maybe even signing day in December. We'll see. I think that recruitment has a long way to go, but it's going to heat up.
Well, the South Carolina OV too. I know in mid-November. I think they're the last one to get an OV as of right now. So you don't want to say you always go by who gets the last OV because it's not that close to signing day yet. There's going to be like a month and a half after that, but it's going to be an interesting timeline down the stretch for him. We'll see if he takes some more in December.
Yeah, and South Carolina is building a heck of an offensive line class too, so I can't believe I forgot about them. But yeah, the Seaton sweepstakes only gets hotter as Brandon Baker comes off the board. Corey Bender, you guys do a great job on Gators Online. Thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.